안녕하세요. How many do we have here from California? Just a show of hands. Wanted to see the Californians in the audience. Thank you, thank you. And I very much appreciate Ambassador Ang Ho Young being with us here this morning. I appreciate the good work offer for her to testify before the House of Representatives. I was delighted that she accepted that offer. And how many of you were able to follow her speech on the floor of Congress? Did a number of you read about that or follow that on the news? I think that that is very important because when we reflect for a minute, the last speaker of a foreign government that we have had address the U.S. Congress was the prior president of South Korea. And it speaks volumes about the importance and closeness of this relationship between the United States and South Korea. Really the pivot or the focus of our energy in the United States in terms of Asia is this relationship with South Korea. And if we think about how far we've come in that relationship, think recently about some of our achievements. The Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement and what that is going to mean in terms of additional trade and investment and opportunity for the Korean-American community here, especially for California because we're on the Pacific Rim. But we think also about the position that Korea is earning today in the world community, not as only as one of the greatest economies, but think of the Korean brands. Think of the position of Korea today with respect to foreign policy, the elevated status that Korea has. And then also our cooperation on human rights issues. And Young Kim on my staff and I have worked for many, many years in order to try to make certain that in North Korea and in China, for those who have escaped from North Korea, that human rights, that we shine a light on the incredible mistreatment, the terrible conditions that humanity struggles under in North Korea without freedom of religion, without the most basic of human rights. It is important that we focus the attention of the international community on this issue and the international media. And for many of you here today, I know that's an important issue to you as well as it is to me. I have had a chance over the years to make many trips to South Korea, to watch this relationship build, to handle many issues. And we've handled them successfully because they needed to be addressed. Whether it was Dokdo Island, when we had to rectify that problem, or whether it was the comments, for example, of public officials in Japan even today, like the mayor of Osaka, who even today wants to deny and rewrite history and wants to ignore those who were most vulnerable to history at the time, 200,000 comfort women from South Korea and elsewhere, who were enslaved by the Japanese army, who underwent terrible beatings and terrible sexual violence. And we hear the audacity of a mayor in Osaka who says, well, this was a necessary element of preparation of Japanese military support. Well, we have spoken out in the United States Congress on those issues, have passed the Comfort Woman Resolution, have taken to the floor of Congress to speak about these issues and demand that we get history right, just as we have worked closely with South Korea in order to try to lessen the tensions on the peninsula with North Korea. And so this is the 60th year of this special relationship that the United States has with South Korea. And it is a time for us to reflect on some other issues that we need to address. One of those is what we can do in order to extend the U.S.-South Korea nuclear cooperation agreement. The existing agreement will expire on March of next year, and this agreement allows the U.S. and South Korea to coordinate on peaceful uses of nuclear energy, and our goal is to extend this agreement. And as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, it's one of a number of issues that I'm working on with our friends in South Korea. But I don't want to speak too long today because I know I'm going to have an opportunity later to meet with some of the delegations that are here. I do want to say this. I commend each and every one of you for being involved in this process, for working to strengthen and deepen these ties between our two countries, because our countries are based upon values, the values of individual freedom, the value of the right of everyone to have a chance to progress, for upward social mobility, for all the young in our countries, for opportunities for the next generation, the value of respecting individual rights and the right to free enterprise and the right to be successful. But also, with that comes the responsibilities. The responsibilities of worrying still about those who do not have those rights. The responsibility of figuring out what we do about young North Koreans inside China who are in such a terrible humanitarian nightmare. And we realize, like the organization Link and other groups that are represented also here today, and the pastors who are with us today, that we have a moral responsibility. And we know that eventually we'll succeed. We know that eventually we'll bring a human dignity to North Korea as well. But thank you all. Thank you all very much for this opportunity here today. And Young Kim, thank you again for your help. And Ambassador, I think now might be an appropriate time for me to ask if you would like to come forward and say a few words.